residential material.
Yes.
It just looks like a money laundering operation.
Oh, that's really true. Well, the other...
Okay. What did you just say?
Don't know what to do.
Well, I found a lot of kids who know what to do. You know? And usually it's kids who don't feel entitled. You know?
Where do you see these kids?
I told you, there's one I've mentored. There are 100 young people who have gotten a hold of me on the internet from watching my...
And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al-Ba-Me. And
those who can feel sorrow, he has made us likened unto himself. And the whole moral fiber of man is made like unto God. He has given to us what he has given no other part of his creation. Why did he do it? Because God wants to express his love. God wants us to know who he is. Listen, God is worth knowing. Turn, if you will, to John chapter 15. And look at this 15th chapter in the upper room, and Jesus is revealing some things about himself, and probably these chapters of 13, 14, 15, and 16 especially, precious chapters. Listen to what Jesus said. And thinking about this whole idea of intimacy, a close relationship, listen, a close relationship, deeply personal and confidential, motivated by genuine love. Listen to what he said in verse 13. Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends. That's real intimate love. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you slaves, for the slave does not know what the master is doing, but I've called you friends, for listen to this, for all things I've heard from my Father, I've made known to you. I'm telling you about myself.
so God's love is so unconditional that for us to receive it, we have to be a slave. But Jesus is saying, no, I'm your friend. So to get to God, you have to go through our friend, Jesus Christ. And what is the doorway? Unconditional forgiveness. So we see ourselves surrounded by chaos, and war, and famine, and weather. Oh, it's so hot. Oh, it's drinking. Oh my God. Oh, yeah. We've only been keeping these records that we're gauging these temperatures on, since the 70s, 1970s, right? Now there are other historical references to the weather, and when the guys go up to Antarctica and the North Pole and they dig those ice cores, they're like history, time in a bottle, right? And we can see what's going on, and we have to step back, and there's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of. I'm like weaving through my books. I'm weaving through all my stuff, getting ready. I mean, I did that already. I whittled it down to what I have now, which I thought I would need to survive the oncoming collapse. And that was, I saw that coming in 1971 when I was at the UN. I was privy to many, things that most people aren't. But this is a very interesting book. This is the Bible, a historical atlas of the Bible. So it's studying the Torah and with Rabbi Ratner in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. He had a laboratory. He wanted me to be a rabbi. I said, Rabbi, how can I be a rabbi? I'm Roman Catholic, Irish, German, Italian. I said, well, no one's perfect. And he said, oh, we are like the what did he say? Guys who are up there, the Amish. We're the Amish of the of La Barbica. There are two of the tribes of the 12. One of the elders. And they're so old that they're no longer conservative. They aren't neoconservatives. They are, guys who look at the book. And the book is really, when you take it to, it's what it's written on, right? And it's interesting to know, where are we? Where are we going? And all you have to do is look back to see forward. So, the guys like Joseph P. Farrell, who are really dark journalists, they do a pretty good job of it. Here's a good buddy, David Adair. He's a little bit older.
While the world searches for modern health solutions, a discovery hidden in sacred scriptures reveals the real secret to a long and healthy life.
There are two types of lizard or reptilian kind of beings. When they appear on Earth, they try to do it covertly. Some come from a totally different reality. Others come from different planets. They all have their own agenda.
When we had EBA 1 in captivity from 1947, 1952, one of the big questions was, do you have a soul? EBA 1 said, absolutely, I have a soul. It is eternal.
There are phenomena going on. We also have different life forms, and the Pentagon reports acknowledges that. So when Earth enters a full harmonious level 4 consciousness, those things will appear and they will affect everyone. And we can see that there are some forces on this planet, extraterrestrial forces, that try to ascend humanity faster.
Welcome to the show. I'm Emery Smith. I'm here again with David Adair. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
One of the things that cross my mind all the time is meeting someone like you that has actually had hands-on experience in, we call them ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles.
My mother was a master modeler, and so I learned building models from her. We've got 6 tons of it. He said, it's really heavy. I said, yeah, what company is it? Where we're at. I want to go on with phase 4. But come to find out, they stopped at one half of phase 1. They got what they wanted, a speed vehicle.
What kind of cargo?
Well, that was to be determined. I didn't know what they wanted to do, but come to find out later, they want to put a thermonuclear warhead on it and aim it at the Soviet Union. But there's more designs to the whole thing. It's a bigger program than just me. I'm part of the program. They win MAD, Mutual Assured Destruction, a program we live under today. And it goes that you're America, I'm Soviet Union. If we attack each other, you can be mutually assured we're going to kill each other. And we don't fight. However, if you got first strike capability, means I hit you so fast, you can't retaliate, I win.
It's about speed.
That's all stuff.
Oh, goodness.
And they didn't tell me anything about this. I'm learning it, finding out as we're
So
going
basically
through
you're telling me the fastest person to kill the planet wins.
Exactly. If you work with me on this and let me finish all the way to phase 4, this thing's going to give you gifts that you're not going to believe.
Right.
You're going to end up with inertia dampeners. You're going to end up with force fields. You're going to end up with star travel. And I'm not talking Star Trek. They're slow. So that's what we could have had for real. Not some TV series.
So what led you to blow this up?
Well,
Not some TV series, and that's where we are right now. We are in a soap opera. The war in Ukraine is a soap opera. You know, it's the war of the two Vlads, and everyone's getting so upset about everything ridiculous. Cancel culture, and there hasn't been any truth. Rudy Giuliani said it does. There is no truth, right? And so. Here we are, 11 minutes and 3 seconds. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. I am your Sensei Al Bob, here to tell you a story. And we are just talking about, sin. Right? What is sin? The disconnection from God's love. Right? And what can we do about it? But the only way we can get to God is through Jesus Christ. The only doorway to Jesus Christ is unconditional forgiveness. And first we have to forgive ourselves, and then we have to forgive everybody else. And so we seeing, just looking around and seeing all this chaos, all this indeterminate anger and frustration and fear. And, we can either jump aboard and be the same thing and blame other people. I mean, no. The bottom line is, when you're dealing with God, you are a godless person. Right? You think about yourself. It's all about you. It's the ego. Right? When something goes wrong, you blame somebody else. Right? It's always somebody else's fault, not yours. Somebody else. But once you realize that you are a godless person, you go, God, help me out here. And God will, like a lightning bolt. Now, we may not understand this, like I asked that back in 2012 when I was at a rainbow gathering, and I was watching this rainbow entity deconstruct, fall apart, just be it all with, we're not in Babylon anymore. We're out here where everything's free and we love each other. Oh, I love you, brother. And everyone was taking advantage of everyone they could. Right? And I said to God, I don't know what's going on. Help me out here. I give myself totally to you. And then, but I was still working in the corporate world, still being Mr. Hedonist. Because I had a lot of money, a lot of stuff. And I had navigated 2008 quite nicely. My parents didn't, to the point that they died. That's one reason I took care of them. Oh, so what's for lunch? Pam?
Hi.
What's for lunch?
Probably hamburgers and fries because I just haven't put it up yet.
No, nothing special. No.
No, not on Saturday.
Saturday's just a cheeseburger day.
It's a hamburger and a cheeseburger day. All day.
Right. Oh, but you still have the 3 vegetables, right?
Yes.
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 I think I'll have that. Well, go do that. Yeah, I'm in no hurry.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Come back at your leisure.
Okay.
So that was 2012, and there were, I told them I'm never coming to another Rainbow gathering to my front door, and it was almost to the mile. And the folks who were the facilitators came and got me.
What can I get for you?
Okay, mashed potatoes.
No mashed potatoes. She ain't had time to make them.
Okay. Fried okra. Greens. And what else is there?
There's cabbage and coleslaw, pinto beans.
Cabbage. Those 3. The 3. I think you stopped being 4, right?
No, we can do 4.
Oh. For the same price?
No, it's $5.99. It's $4.89 for 3.
Okay, I'll take 3.
You want raw or cornbread?
Can I have another one instead of one or the other?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have. Do you have greens, collards?
Yeah, she's got greens.
Okay, on that. Those 4 vegetables. I've had enough carbohydrates. Those
Hey, you already
pancakes.
got greens.
Oh, okay. Then beans, pintos.
You want onions?
Oh yeah.
You want any bread at all?
No. We'll see what happens. Well, 16 minutes and 11 seconds. So I kind of got rid of everything. I kept only the deep green because I needed, a place to be. And it's really beautiful. And I had, and I needed a place to recuperate. Right? The school wasn't it. I sold it to John Boy. And John threw me out 32 times. And again, that was another gift from God. Because every time John threw me out, even though, he threw me out some really awful times, middle of snowstorms, late at night, I couldn't see. And every time, it's like, okay, instead of being upset or anxious, I just said, okay, God, you got my back. And every single time, a really amazing thing happened. Like one of the times, so I got off the hill, got down to the county road, got into town. It was like, 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was snowing. So I drove to the one place I knew would be open, and that was Texas Tavern. That is a hot dog stand that has been open since 1923. Never closed, not even for Christmas, 24/7, right? And so I drive there, and there's people in it too, because it's warm, and there's food, and it's cheap. You can get a fully loaded hot dog with beans for like $1.50. And this is that. And so it's around 2016 winter of, and the election, was hot and heavy. Anyway, so Donnie Trump and the Democrats hadn't picked somebody, but it was pretty obvious, Bernie looked like the hot and heavy. He was having his rallies where he'd have 20, 30,000 people in a stadium, and Hillary Clinton couldn't get 4 people in a high school, gymnasium. But it was obviously Hillary would be the Democrat. And just like it's obvious that it's going to be Donald Trump and moron boy, Jojo the used car salesman, and Honeybun, right? Now, the Democrats will go to their convention, and something will happen to Honeybun, right? And so in the dark rooms, they will pick Michelle Obama as vice president. Oh, everybody loves Michelle. Oh, man, that's really a shoo-in. And so it'll be, Don will pick Kennedy as his vice president. And that'll be really interesting because, what's his name? Carrot Head and Scratchy Voice will basically spill the beans on everything, which is, Carrot Head has already done. And this is like, the CIA version of this. Used car salesmen, Democrats were never Democrats. Look at Democrats. Who were they during the Civil War? They were the guys who were for slavery. Who. Here we go. Let's play this point.
It's a misapprehension. We like to think that totalitarian systems are ruled by a sort of singular, top-down tyrant. Hitler, Stalin, Lenin. It's like, no. A totalitarian state is ruled by the lie. And the lie is the principle of governance, and everyone who lies is complicit in maintenance of the state. And so, the Soviet joke, we pretend to work, they pretend to pay us. And so a totalitarian state isn't the freedom-loving masses pining for deliverance out of the desert, but oppressed by the thumb of Stalin. It's every single person lying about absolutely everything to themselves and everyone they love 100% of the time. And sometimes that lie is just silence. The useful idiots always think, this will never happen to me. You see this with the Democrats in the U.S. So I just interviewed Robert F. Kennedy, who in principle is a Democrat. So they took down the interview. And that just shocked me because it's a presidential campaign. And now YouTube can censor a presidential candidate mid-election, and there isn't a peep from the left. And the reason for that is they think, well, Kennedy's not a real Democrat, without noticing for a second that the definition of real Democrat is going to get increasingly narrow as we move forward, and that's already happened, And I tried for years talking to the Democrats, probably 36 senators and congressmen alike, always asking them the same question. I asked Robert Kennedy this too. When does the left go too far? And to a man or woman, they were either unwilling or unable to answer that question. And so here we are with this increasing normalization of censorship and canceling. And this, by the way, is also a technique that's used.
So, neocons, neoliberals, two wings of the same fascist bird. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sal Bob. That's me. We've been going on for 22 minutes and 22 seconds, and there's nobody here, no one commenting. I don't even know if YouTube has put this out there into the world. But it would be nice if somebody put something in my PayPal, right? Hey, corporate oligarchy, put some cash in my PayPal, I'll shut up. Come on, buy me out. Give me another space. You need the loyal opposition. I am the loyal opposition, right? So come on. Now, I'm not going to become Mr. Hedonist again, but I am going to be the loyal opposition, right? And you want to bring on CBDC, right? I think so. CDBC, centralized digital banking currency, right? And what is that? It's just a way to lie. And everyone will get it, some cash in the can, and they have to spend it pretty quickly or it'll disappear because they want no way for the average Joe to invest, to make a wealth that they can pass on. Only the elite can have that, right? And if we hear about our defense budget, blah, 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 billions to the Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. Stupid Republican holding up the upper echelon, being, generals going up the rank, blah, 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 blah. Look, what you don't hear is that the reacquisition of COG in a new thing. What's that? Continuation of government. That was put forth in the 40s with nuclear weapons. The defense state, the 47 National Security Act, that changed everything. And basically, what COG is now putting in, they need a new communication system that's secure. And what's that going to be really used for? It's going to be used for, let's say you're Don Corleone, right? You got all these billions. Just, what are they doing around here? Why are all the cockroaches coming here now? Because they are burying, they are laundering their dirty money, right? And real estate, and then selling it off to morons from Charlotte. And this is the, beautiful, beautiful deep green, but they're going to chop it up into 15-minute chunks of the deep green. You'll only be able to live in your 15-minute zone, right? What is that? That's the zone that you can walk or ride your bike to, right? Because you won't have a car, right? And if you want to go someplace, you hit the. Oh, and can I have a little gravy with that too?
Yeah, everybody on the burger?
Oh, she's on the phone.
No, we sure don't.
Anyway,
You want some of
so you'll hit that little thing on your smartphone, and little box will show up and take you wherever you want to go. You want to go to Paris, you want to go to here or go there. Not a problem. Oh, isn't that beautiful? So convenient. But if you say something, do something. This is the same mechanism that is in place in China, where here in the United States we have what is known as a credit score, and in China they have a social score. Now you can have all the money in the bank. That guy who started Alibaba was a trillionaire, right? One of the richest guys in China. Well, he was speaking up, when Hong Kong was trying to stay, free, because it was, in a thing with England. England gave Hong Kong to China. They had 50 years of a two-party system. Kind of got upset and angst. Xi didn't like that, so they stepped all over it, and the people rebelled. Didn't make a difference, right? And Xi wanted that so he could show to everyone, don't rebel. And this is just before the COVID lockdown. And the COVID lockdown was another vehicle of showing, you have no control over yourself. We're going to lock you down. We're going to keep you in your house. Chinese went to the place where they even welded people in, and they starved to death in their big fancy apartments. So this is the world that Mr. Global wants, and people go on and on and on like this. And they don't. And the average guy who sent me this, who thinks he's smart, scholastic. I went to college,
Oh, you.
Here we go.
Look, if you're like me, you want to carry your gun all day long and you want to be comfortable when you do it. That's why we've got the Vantage holster right here. I'm wearing gym shorts, no problem. That's because the Vantage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. On July 4th, 2023, Independence Day, Judge Terry A. Doty of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana entered a historic injunction against the White House and other federal officials. This injunction prevents them from, quote, urging, encouraging, pressuring, or inducing in any manner the removal, deletion, suppression, or reduction of content containing protected speech posted on social media platforms. Judge Doty's opinion contains 82 pages of detailed factual findings, supported by 577 citations of the evidence, which is drawn from roughly 20,000 pages of the federal government's own emails and communications with social media platforms and 6 full-length depositions. In its recently filed stay motions, the government has hardly bothered to dispute any of these factual findings. The Court of Appeals has entered a, quote, temporary administrative stay of this injunction and granted expedited briefing and argument on August 10th. Contrary to some recent suggestions, a temporary administrative stay is, quote, routine practice in the Fifth Circuit. That's a direct quote from the recent decision in N. Ray Abbott, and it does not reflect any judgment of the merits. Today, I want to offer 7 observations drawn from the Louisiana opinion. First, the Louisiana court found, based on overwhelming evidence, that federal officials are the cause of the censorship of the viewpoints they disfavor. The government likes to claim that social media platforms acting on their own would apply their policies and censor all this content anyway. This
He goes on, right? And what you understand when an individual's like that, you know, going after the opposite, they're actually supporting it. Right? Anybody in Congress is bought off. You know, anyone who's gone to Bohemian Grove is basically have been, blackmailed, right, into doing whatever Mr. Global only wants. Now, it's very interesting that it doesn't matter what all of these morons do, because God's love is the only true thing that exists. Right? And that's why I can say, yo, corporate world, here I am, your loyal opposition. Get me on Joe Rogan show. Give me a nice chunk of change. Let me get a bus and take it on the road. Let me be the new Dharma Bums. I got a few buddies who would make a good show. If you go watch this show, I have over 2,000 shows. I got over 2,000 stories. If you get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, I'll send you my novels. Last 4 years I've been writing novels. I have 4 of them. I have 18 of them. 5 of them are kind of in the rough manuscript form, need some editing to be a book. And I found, talk about books, ooh, hate that sound. What's her name? It's about a Russian woman in the 90s. It was like an angel in the woods. And it's called the Cedarwood series, I think. Red Cedar, something like that. And Anastasia is her name. If you were to, let's see what Mr. Google says. Anastasia book series. Yep, there it is. The Ringing Cedar of Russia, all 10 books. Anastasia. Demons. Kratos. How the world. Let's see what these guys have to say.
This is a story of Demon Kratos from the book The New Civilization by Vladimir Megre. This is from book 8 of the Ringing Cedar series. The slaves walked slowly in single file every one of them carrying a polished stone. 4 lines of them, each line stretching 1.5 kilometers long, from the stone quarries to the site where construction on the walled city had begun, under the watchful eyes of armed guards, 1 military guard for every 10 slaves. Off to one side, to the pinnacle of a 13-meter-high mountain crafted out of polished stones, sat Cratius, one of the high priests. For the past 4 months, he had been silently observing the construction activity. Nobody distracted him. Not a single person dared interrupt his contemplation, even with a sideway glance. Both slaves and guards accepted this artificial mountain with its throne on top as a fixed feature on the landscape. And nobody paid attention to the figure either sitting motionless on the throne or walking to and from around the lookout platform atop the mountain. Cratius had set himself the task of restructuring the state, consolidating the power of the priests for a millennium, subjugating to them all the people of the earth, turning all without exception, including national rulers, into slaves of the priests. One day, Cratius came down from his throne, leaving a double in his place. The priest changed his clothes and took off his wig. He gave orders to the captain of the guard to have him bound in chains like a simple slave and placed in the line behind a strong young slave named Nard. Looking into the faces of the various slaves, Cratius had noticed that this young man in particular had a penetrating and purposeful look, not a wandering or detached gaze as did many of the others. Nard's countenance alternated between excitement and intense contemplation. That means he's hatching some kind of plan, the priest realized, but he wanted confirmation of the accuracy of his observation. For 2 days running, Cratius followed Nard's every move, silently hauling the stones, sitting beside him at mealtimes, and sleeping next to him in the barracks. On the 3rd night, directly the sleep command had been given, Cratius turned to the young slave and in a tone of bitterness and despair, whispered to no one in particular, "Will this situation keep up the rest of our lives?" The priest watched as the young slave gave a shudder and suddenly turned to face him. His eyes were sparkling, which was noticeable even in the dim torchlight of the cavernous barracks. "It won't last much longer," the young slave whispered back. "I've been working out a plan, and you, old fellow, can be part of it." "What sort of plan?" the priest asked with a sigh of indifference. Nard began to explain with an air of confidence and enthusiasm. "You see, old man, soon you and I, and all of us, will be free men instead of slaves. Figure it out for yourself. There's just 1 guard for every 10 of us, and 1 guard, too, for every 15 women slaves who do the cooking and sewing. When the time comes, if we all fall upon the guards at once, we can overpower them. It makes no difference that the guards are armed and we're in chains. We outnumber them 10 to 1, and our chains can also be used as weapons to shield us from the blows of their swords. We'll disarm all the guards, tie them up, and seize their weapons." "Hold on there, young man," Cratius sighed again, and added with feigned indifference, "Your plan isn't completely thought through. Sure, you can disarm the guards watching over us, but it won't be long before the ruler sends in replacements, a whole army maybe, and he'll have the insurgents killed." "I thought of that too, old man. We'll have to choose a time when the army's not around, and that time is coming. We've all noticed how the army's preparing for a campaign. They're getting provisions ready for a 3-month trek. The army will arrive at its destination and engage the enemy in combat. It will be weakened in battle, but it will be victorious and bring back..."
Hey, sounds similar to what history is, correct? Anyway. Nobody's watching, no thumbs up, no comments. I wonder why.
The fear mongering. Any lockdown occurred really. Today, the wonderful Matt Letizia. Matt, you are internationally known. Your background, of course, is in football. But from my point of view, what I find really fascinating is you're a household name that is prepared, like people like Neil Oliver, to stand up and actually talk about the stuff that's going on, the weird things that are happening to all of us, that a lot of mainstream media, in fact, all of it, apart from, say, GB News, are prepared to address. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much, Richard. Good to talk to you. It's good to talk to you. Now, can I let me just start by asking, at what point did you start to realise things going on in the world were not quite what they should be? I think it was fairly early on in 2020. I'm talking before any lockdown occurred, really. I think the first thing that kind of was a red flag for me was the videos coming out of China of these people just dropping down in the street very unnaturally. And I thought that all looks a bit weird to me. And then I spoke to a couple of doctors who are friends of mine. I was out having dinner with them kind of late February, early March. They'd seen the data on what was coming out. And they assured me at that early stage that the only people really who were going to be in any serious danger were going to be incredibly old people or people with comorbidities, and that this wasn't really going to affect too much any young healthy people. And so they weren't at that stage. They weren't sure what all the fuss was about, and so I was kind of quite reassured by that. And I think because of that conversation, I then didn't buy into the fear mongering propaganda that the people and so yeah, I kind of was able to detach myself from the propaganda and just look at things rationally and logically and come to my own conclusions. But, I mean, it was fascinating, wasn't it? Where one day Chris Whitty stood up and said exactly as you said, not much to worry about. But the next day it was as if the script had just been rewritten and changed. And suddenly we started this nonsense drama that was thrust upon us. How did your family, your fellow colleagues, and people that you would associate with, what did they think as things were unfolding? I think as the propaganda ramped up, and we had the daily death tolls and all that stuff, I think a lot of them were taken in by the fear mongering, and a lot of them probably thought that I was going a little bit mad back in 2020 because I was constantly speaking out against what was being thrown at us 24 hours a day through the media. And I think they were quite concerned for me, and I think as time has gone on, a lot of them have realised that actually, the stuff that I was saying back in 2020 was actually pretty much bang on, and that they now don't think I'm mad, and they actually think that I had a lot of valid points back then. But I mean, somebody who's in the public eye and being interviewed a lot, did you get opportunities to question the journalist if they were doing a feature about you, about anything? There was nothing. Though the journalistic integrity has been thrown out the window. Normally, if they were doing a story about you, they would contact you for some kind of quote to be able to counter what they were writing against you. But that went out the window, and it was just attack after attack in the mainstream media. But that's something that is kind of water off a duck's back to me. I spent 17 years as a professional footballer being criticised in the media, so it didn't really have a great deal of effect. I think they were hoping that by attacking me in that way that they thought they could shut me up. But unfortunately, they don't really know my character very well. So it had the opposite effect, I imagine.
it did have the opposite effect. You know, I'm incredibly stubborn, and if I feel I'm right about something, I'll stick to my guns until I'm 100% proved wrong. At which point I would be big enough as a man to go, oh, sorry, I got that one wrong. I apologise. So far, I mean, there's been a couple of things that I've tweeted where it was probably a misjudgment on my part in terms of the content that I used. At which point I held my hand up and I apologised, and I deleted the said tweets when I thought that I'd gone a little bit too far. And I think that's what we should do in a reasonable society. You know, we should be able to have this freedom of speech, and if people make mistakes, then you should be big enough to own up to them, hold your hands up, and move on. You know, and unfortunately, there's only one side of the debate over the last 3 years that have been able to do that, and it's not the mainstream media side.
No, absolutely. So when the vaccines were being initially proposed, that don't panic, you don't have to worry, don't worry about using anything else like ivermectin or any of the other potential things, even vitamin D, for goodness sake, you know, what did you think that this experimental drug that was coming at warp speed did you see it as a panacea at all, or were you quite skeptical?
I was incredibly skeptical. I kind of I've listened to a few people who had some, you know, at the time were pretty out there ideas about what was going on, and how they were going to, you know, try to get an injection to everybody's arm in the world. You know, trying to inject every human being on the planet. I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. It's pretty common knowledge how long it takes to develop a vaccine.
Yeah.
You know, and they're saying that they've got this. They've never had a vaccine for a coronavirus before, but all of a sudden, in the space of a year, 4 companies have come up with a new vaccine, and in the space of a year, there's no way, it's physically impossible to know what any medium-term or long-term side effects are going to be of these vaccines. And given the fact that for my demographic of people, the risk was incredibly low of dying from this virus, that it was just a no-brainer for me to just go, no, there's not a chance that I'm taking that. I'm using my common sense. I'm taking in all the available knowledge that's gone on, all the statistics that are out there, and I'm going, well, no, I think I'll take my chances with this one. I don't think I need.
Yeah, no, and then, I mean, it just seemed to get lower, and the age was lowered and lowered and lowered on such a ridiculous scale, particularly as it started to head to kids in their 20s, college kids and university students, and then pregnant mothers.
Oh, honestly, it's just disgusting what they did. I mean, Matt Hancock stood up in Parliament. I think even before the vaccine had rolled out, and had said in Parliament, this is an adult-only vaccine. And I remember I was watching it. I sat there watching it, and I actually, stupidly, when I was watching it, it actually brought me a sense of relief that they weren't going to put this stuff into children.
Yes.
Then obviously a few months later, yeah, here we go, here it comes. And it is the boiling the ethical frog stuff, you know, they'll do it very gradually, they'll take it down the ages, and everyone will go, oh, well, you know, it's only this. And eventually, you know, they went for the youngsters, they went for the babies, they went for the pregnant mothers. I mean, gee whiz, a pregnant mother, they tell them not to even eat any soft cheese. And yet, are going, yeah, you can't mum you at all. Wow. I mean, there have been crimes against humanity committed all over the place.
What do you think this says about the general public who were buying into all of this, that they weren't using any form of critical thinking to make the same sort of decisions? I mean, it seems to me that it's made me very aware of how easily manipulated we are, and that we've put so much trust in authority figures rather than actually being able to disseminate things for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's that I think has been a long-term plan. I think the schooling, the education that we get teaches us that. I think you've got parents that send their children off to school and say, you must obey the authority, you must listen to your teachers. Whereas really, what we should be saying was, you don't know those teachers that you're telling your child, go and you listen to that teacher, you do as the teacher tells you.
Secret laboratory. In the middle of nowhere, our nation's best scientists focused on one goal. End this war. Our boys would come home. I can perform this miracle. Robert, try not to blow up the world. Oppenheimer in theaters now. Rated R.
I'm not gonna blow up the world.
This is Carl Sagan. When I was a kid, he was everybody's favorite scientisty guy. And he said this, we've lived through this, right? So he predicted what we just lived through with COVID. He predicted that if we just rely on experts and we have a technology now that nobody understands. And so that's dangerous because how are you supposed to check people who are charlatans? And that's what he says. Here, let's listen.
But what's the danger of all this? I mean, this is not the thing.
There's two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology. And
you're just supposed to trust the experts and don't do your own research. And he's telling you, he predicted that they would say this. He said, here we are with a society based on science and technology that nobody understands. And if you do try to understand it, they tell you to shut up.
Combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that...
So is he talking about people in Congress? That's what it sounds like to me. People, the politicians who have the power. Ignorance and power. And how did they use that ignorance and power? They forced mandates on us of experimental medical treatments. They did unscientific lockdowns, which killed people. They told us to wear masks unscientifically. They stopped us from going work, travel, all unscientifically. So that's what he's talking about. And the second thing he's worried about,
I'm worried about this, is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking.
That's right.
A way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along.
Like Dr. Fauci or Peter Hotez. So if we're not allowed to question those people, then we're at the mercy of the next charlatan who comes along. And that's all we did at this show, was question the official COVID narrative. And it turns out our questions were correct, and we were being lied to at every turn. And people like Fauci and Hotez will never go on to a critical interview, and they'll lie about the people that they're slandering. That's what Hotez did, and he won't fix them. And let's remember what he just said.
It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
And that's exactly what happened during COVID. The people who were supposed to be educated, like Chomsky the leaders, our political, those people just shut up. The union leaders, the activists, where were they? Everybody just shut up and got afraid to do exactly what he said, which was get informed and then ask questions. And they wouldn't do it. They still won't do it. They're still pretending like that never happened. Let's watch it one more time.
But what's the danger of all this? I mean, this is not the thing that.
There's two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology. And this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
And that's what we're living in today. People were afraid to be skeptical of the government. They were afraid to ask questions. And so the government runs us, and we don't run the government. Congratulations to all my asshole friends in comedy who shamed people for practicing science. Turns out they were the anti-science. If you told someone, please don't do your own research, you were being anti-science. Oh, and an asshole. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Baltimore, San Francisco.
Yeah, let's see, 57 minutes and 57 seconds. Well, this is as good a time as any since there's nobody here having a conversation. So are you going to be skeptical? You're going to ask questions? Go back and watch the show a couple of times. There's a lot of good things in it. Let's see. Leave you with something.
They tried it. Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Not working too well. People are going to come up with a physical medium of exchange. That's all there is to it. That's money. That's money.
See, piece too. Bitcoin has its own thing, and it became the
Made up law over and over again. One is the UFO thing, that we have all of these whistleblowers. Lo and behold, they finally crawled out of the woodwork. They're visiting us, and we're under threat.
The CIA
is they're doing all of this at the same time that they are trying to. So, in other words, to put yourself into the way these people think. Oh, yeah. That's the kind of project that they push. So, looking at Silicon Valley Bank, there's something else that we were talking before the recording started that was happening in conjunction or at the same time as Silicon Bank, and I think it's related.
Mm-hmm.
When the bank started to fail, what you saw was all were drawing money out. All the big ones, they were getting out of that thing as fast as they could. But the other thing that was happening was in the banking system at large, small depositors were taking their money out of credit unions, which there was no, what's going on here.
Interesting.
I think people are wising up that these central banksters want to eliminate cash. In other words, that's a way of stealing your money. That's all this is. Because they are in trouble, and of course, what do banksters do when they put themselves in trouble? They steal everybody else's money, under cover of some made-up law or system or it's all BS.
They want the cashless society.
They want the cashless society. Well, they want the cashless society for everybody else but themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And I asked you this question: put yourself in the position of Don Corleone. And you are an international drug lord, crime boss. You're involved in all sorts of stuff. Are you going to trust your cash flow, your cold hard cash, to a banker that can turn it off via a digital currency?
No way.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. You either, if you're Mr. Central Bankster, you either have to crawl into bed and give these crime bosses absolute guarantees with their digital system. And if you're a crime boss, you're going to look at these people and say, there's no way I'm doing business on that level with these people. Not with their track record.
Yeah,
so in other words, Mr. Central Bankster wants to move all of us, all the honest people, into their cashless system. But rest assured, the hidden system of finance that I've been writing about for years is going to remain a cash-based analog system of physical money exchange. Bottom line.
That's where the real financial system is.
That's where the real financial system is, and it's going to continue to rely on paper notes, bearer bonds, gold and silver and platinum and all that good tangible money. And it's not going to be relying on little blips on a computer screen. I guarantee that.
This is interesting, and I'm going to see if this is related. You can let me know. They have new legislation being attached to the National Defense Authorization Act, and it has to do with the continuity of government program, which I keep a close eye on. The COG program is interesting because they want to put in these new developing a new communication, original ARPANET. But that whole Doomsday Network communication we know was always outside of NSA or anybody else. And I can show you the sweeping legislation that they have for this amendment, which would go into effect for next year's NDAA. And when I think about you talking about the CBDC rollout, it sounds like there's some connection.
System is secure. Let's go back, and I think you're absolutely right. This new internet or ARPANET is solely for the purpose of their new central bank digital currency and whatever else they want to attach to it. A social engineering punishments reward scheme such as exists in communist China.
Right.
And let's remember, folks, a cryptocurrency is not a currency; it's a corporate coupon. They can turn it on or off, and here's what I think is ultimately coming. I think they're going to put into place a use it or lose it system. In other words, you've got a certain amount of time to spend your blips on the computer screen. After that, the blips are no longer there. This is the way they are going to prevent anyone from accumulating wealth intergenerationally. They want the game entirely for themselves.
Wow, that's incredible.
Oh, yeah. This is exactly what they intend. The problem is, as I say, they're not going to be able to convince Don Corleone to give up his cold hard cash. Now, a digital system will work nicely.
Yeah, and that's why they're buying all the real estate. The mobsters putting, they may have laws that you can't hold this, that, and the other thing, but they, can still have that nice hotel on the lake. Anyway, 1 hour, 10 minutes. Let's see. When we hit 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, maybe I'll say goodnight. Tracy. And maybe I'll come back later this afternoon, see if anyone shows up. Anyway, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those. Thank you, Lord, for this meal that I've just eaten. Thank you, Lord, for this day that I'm experiencing. Thank you, Lord, for all those out there in the digital world who appreciate and are helped by what I say through your love. I serve you. This show is for you, Lord, not for me. It has nothing to do with me. I am just your servant. Thank you, Lord. I love you dearly. Thank you for everything you do for me.